Audrey Hepburn. I mean, when you hear that name, what comes to mind? For most of us, it's this picture of timeless elegance, right? Pure Hollywood magic. For decades, she's been this incredible screen legend. But today, we're going to look past that iconic little black dress and uncover the story that really made her who she was. A story of survival, of resilience, and ultimately, of purpose. So, let's start with the icon the world thinks it knows so well.
See, this is the image. This is the one we all know and love. The star of Breakfast at Tiffany's, the fashion icon draped in Givenchy. She was the absolute definition of grace and sophistication. A person who literally defined style for an entire generation. This is the Audrey Hepburn that the world fell completely in love with. But believe me, it is only one piece of a much larger story.
Movie star, fashion icon, survivor. Okay, so we get the first two. They're basically synonymous with her name. But it's that third word, survivor, that really holds the key to understanding who she actually was. So, which one truly defines her? Well, as you're about to see, all three of these words are connected in ways you would probably never expect.
All right, so first, let's just set the stage with the legend herself. Because her career, it wasn't just successful, it was absolutely stratospheric. She became a household name almost overnight, and she just enchanted audiences with this unique charm that was all her own.
I mean, just look at the list of her accomplishments. It's truly remarkable. She won an Oscar for her very first starring role in Roman Holiday. Then you've got classics like My Fair Lady and the thriller Wait Until Dark that will have you on the edge of your seat. And get this, she's one of the very, very few people to achieve EGOT status. That's an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. Her place in Hollywood history? Totally secure. But her story started a world away from any film set.
And right here, the whole story pivots. This chilling quote from Audrey herself rips us away from the glamour of Hollywood and throws us into the darkness of her childhood. To understand the woman, you have to understand the girl who lived through something truly unimaginable.
So now we're going back in time. We're in the Netherlands during World War II. Audrey, who was then just a young girl, spent her most formative years living under Nazi occupation. And that experience, well, it would mark her for the rest of her life. This timeline, it just lays out a childhood completely shattered by war. Her family moved to the Netherlands thinking they'd be safe, but instead they were trapped. She had to change her very English-sounding name just to avoid suspicion. She watched as a beloved uncle was executed, and as a young ballerina, she risked her life performing in secret underground concerts to raise money for the resistance. Then came the final years of the war, and with them the infamous Hunger Winter, a period of just brutal, widespread famine. Survival became a minute-by-minute struggle. Can you even imagine how desperate things were? Her family, like so many others, had to resort to grinding up tulip bulbs into a crude flour just to have something, anything to eat. By the time the war ended, she was suffering from severe malnutrition, anemia, and a whole list of other illnesses. She was just a child who had stared starvation right in the face.
And it wasn't just physical suffering. This quote, it just reveals the deep psychological trauma she carried. She talked about seeing trainloads of Dutch Jews being sent to concentration camps. And this one image of a little boy, pale, wearing a coat that was way too big for him, it stayed with her forever. I was a child observing a child. That single moment forged an empathy in her that would go on to define the rest of her life.
Now, that suffering didn't just leave emotional scars, it physically changed the entire course of her life. You see, her first great passion wasn't acting at all, it was ballet. And the war directly and so unexpectedly changed everything. So here you have it, a dream colliding head-on with a brutal reality. All she ever wanted was to be a prima ballerina, and she had the talent, she had the dedication, but years of malnourishment had just ravaged her body. It was simply too weak to handle the intense physical demands of being an elite ballet dancer.
Just imagine that moment for a second. Being told that the dream you have worked for your entire young life is impossible, not because you're not good enough, but because of what the war did to your body. Heartbroken, but always pragmatic, she made a life-altering choice. She would shift her focus to acting. And just like that, a new path opened up. But here's the thing. The discipline, the poise, that incredible grace that made her so captivating on screen, all of that came from her years of ballet training. It was the foundation of her iconic presence. The war destroyed her first dream, but in a strange twist of fate, it inadvertently created the film legend we see right here. After stepping back from Hollywood, Audrey entered the third and final act of her life. And in it, she found a new calling,
one that brought her entire story full circle, connecting her right back to the suffering child she once was.
As a goodwill ambassador for UNICEF, she was no figurehead. No, she put herself on the front lines. She traveled to some of the most desperate places on the entire planet. She went to Ethiopia and Sudan during devastating famines, to Vietnam to support clean water programs. Her final mission, just 4 months before she died, was to Somalia during a famine she could only describe as apocalyptic. She never, ever shied away from the worst of it.
You can just hear in her own words from that trip to Ethiopia how deeply this work affected her. This was not a celebrity photo op. This was personal. For her, seeing starving children wasn't some abstract tragedy on the news. It was a memory. She knew exactly what it felt like.
And right here, this is the why. This explains everything. After the Netherlands was liberated, a young, sick Audrey was one of the children who received aid from relief organizations, the very predecessors to groups like UNICEF. Her life was saved by the same kind of aid she was now fighting for. She said she simply wanted to show her gratitude, and she dedicated her final years to doing exactly that. So when you really look at her life, you realize you can't separate the glamour from the grit. You can't separate the icon from the survivor. They are two halves of one absolutely extraordinary story.
Wow. I mean, this slide really says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you have the dazzling star of My Fair Lady, the absolute peak of Hollywood fantasy. And on the right, her simple, quiet grave in a small Swiss village where she finally found some peace. It's such a powerful contrast between her public image and the quiet dignity she truly valued in her private life.
And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. The elegance she showed on screen and the empathy she showed in famine-stricken villages, they came from the exact same place. Her compassion wasn't an act. It was forged in the fires of war and starvation. It was a direct result of the suffering she herself had known. Her life's work was a direct response to her own survival.
So, we end with this question. What is the true definition of a legacy? Is Audrey Hepburn's legacy her timeless films and that iconic style? Or is it the tireless work she did for starving children, born from a deep personal understanding of their pain? You know, maybe her true legacy is the powerful connection between the two, a reminder that sometimes our deepest purpose can be found in our deepest wounds.